So we are going to be ranking the NBA Southeast Division today. Uh, John, I'm going to kick it to you first. I think we're going to actually have both different number one teams. Maybe our top three teams are going to be in different orders because I think mine is in a little bit of a surprising order. So I want to hear who's your number one team entering this season for the Southeast Division?
Actually, three teams that are all at the top for the Mavericks, the Grizzlies, and the Pelicans. All three of them have real fighters' chances, or fighters' punches, excuse me, to make it to the conference finals this year. Maybe if all goes well, the NBA finals. For me, number one is the Dallas Mavericks. They have the best player in this division. And ultimately, the Mavericks this offseason lose Jalen Brunson to the Knicks, and they don't quite replace him with another perimeter go-to initiator. They add in Jaden Hardy in the second round of the draft, a bucket getter out of the G League that is very unpolished as a 19-year-old. Spencer Dinwiddie will be back for a second season, and then they trade for Christian Wood, who will be coming off of the bench while JaVale McGee starts at the 5. This Dallas team is the best one Luka has had around him yet. They don't have Porzingis, but quite frankly, he was not much of a contributor. He wasn't often playing more than 55 games. Now you have Maxi Kleba. He looked very good last year and well healthy. And a defense that last year around Jason Kidd maximized its parts. I don't think the Mavericks got better this offseason because of the Brunson loss. But Luka was working hard this offseason in Eurobasket. He's going to come into camp probably for the first time in shape. And most of all, there's the perfect continuity here for the Mavericks to level up in the regular season. Most people don't expect them to be a top 3 seed, but there is a gateway for that if Luka plays 75 games. And I wouldn't pick him to be my MVP, but I do think Christian Wood this year will win Sixth Man of the Year. He is the perfect fit next to Luka. And in Houston, he averaged 23 and I think it was 8 or 9 rebounds in about 7 games playing with James Harden. And Luka is cut from that very same cloth of a pick and roll ball handler that can make every pocket pass, lobs, whatever it may be. Christian Wood can do his thing off the second unit, create for himself. He's a guy that's going to go back to the basket. Defensively, he's been terrible largely, but you can make a case he can play the 4 next to a more traditional rim protector. And all of a sudden, Dallas has a very nice spark off the bench. The other one I want to highlight for them is Tim Hardaway coming back from injury. So the Mavericks are number one.
Now let's introduce to you guys BetStamp. Now BetStamp is a all-in-one marketplace because every sports book has different odds. On FanDuel, they got Detroit Lions at plus 194. Oh, those are good odds. I'm getting an underdog at a good price. But wait, Sugar House has them at plus 215. Get a little bit more bang for your buck, and that's what it's all about when you're betting. You can track all your bets through all the sports books, and I'll have that right there in one convenient place for you to look. And our referral code is WISEGUYS, WISEGUYS. That's WISEGUYS. And like I was saying, the biggest thing with BetStamp, guys, it's free. Yeah, so mine is, listen, I'll say this right off the bat. My 1 and 2 teams can easily be flipped. Excuse me. I'm only putting this team number 1 because I'm going to bet on them being healthy. Well, not bet on, but I'm counting on them being healthy this year. Especially, you know who I'm talking about, Zion Williamson. My number 1 team is the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion is healthy. He looks really good. He looks like he's in shape this year. They got the quote-unquote big 3. Not really a big 3, but you know what I mean. In name value, they've got Zion, they got B.I., and they got C.J. They still got Big V, Jonas Valanciunas at center, who last year was a what the hell is my numbers? A 17 and 11 guy on 55% shooting from the field, 36 from 3, and 78% from the free throw line. That's very good. The second unit is very young, so they're going to be able to, run around and use those fresh legs to help play defense or initiate offense, score. Willie Green, I know he's a lot of people are very high on him. He started out 1 and 12 last year, but was able to finish with 36 and 46 records. So that's being able to overcome adversity and show that, even if you're down, you're able to fight through those dark times. I think the major concern with this team, besides injury, obviously, as number 1, is the defense. This was a big problem when it was. I always get it's Van Gundy. It was Steve Van Gundy, right?
Aquaman,
It, who was their head coach?
Dan Van Gundy.
Stan Van Gundy.
Steve's the one on television.
Steve's the one on television who I
I think
love. I mean,
Stan
he
is
is.
too.
They both are, but Steve he's legendary with his comments and his
Gives good
straightforward
mix.
bluntness. Yeah. But Stan Van Gundy, I remember watching some of their games. I think they made it to the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. That was the bubble year, I think. I just remember the commentators talking about this team can score with anybody. Like that's not the problem. Their scoring is not the problem. They can't stop anybody. And when you can't stop nobody, well, guess what? If you start stringing a couple of, possessions together that aren't scoring and you're getting scored on consistently on the other end, you're going to lose probably 9 times out of 10. So that's what's got to fix is Zion has to buy in defensively. BI has to buy in defensively. CJ's obviously not a defender, but you got Valanciunas, who is a 7-footer. He can rim protect, not an elite level, but at least he's a 7-footer. He can be there. They've got some guys. John may be able to highlight that a little bit more than me, but I'm going to pick the Pelicans as my number one team going in.
I think it's a very good pick. Pelican fans, it is time to get really excited. Last year, this team started, I reckon, 3-16, and they made the playoffs. Now, in the bubble, they did miss out, and at large, that was because Zion played barely 20 games. He came into the NBA, and what speaks volumes about Zion was that he was immediately an All-NBA player, almost. He was averaging 20-something on, a minutes restriction, and his first step, athleticism, strength, and flair to score around the rim in a way we have almost never seen. Like Shaq, he didn't even score in the way Zion does because Zion's 6'7". It's what makes him a true generational talent. And the biggest thing for the Pelicans this offseason, maybe the most important move, was getting Zion on that extension. We didn't. Okay, I think we should have known, but people, much like Donovan Mitchell, wanted Zion out of New Orleans, and it wasn't fair to Zion with all he was going through. Now he's in the right mental place. And much like the Joel Embiid extension, if he misses time, it's not fully guaranteed. So I thought for David Griffin, a guy who the last couple of years, his first few in New Orleans were god awful, he has done almost everything right over the last year. You talked about their defense. And the reason this team reminds me of the Chicago Bulls last year is because 4 of their starters are just bad defenders. Zion defensively, it was somewhat effort, but also he doesn't move quite well enough laterally to guard on the perimeter. He's a tweener. Jonas Valanciunas, he's big, but there is a reason Steven Adams went to Memphis and fit right in on their defense, and they improved. Not a very good defender. CJ McCollum is a very good shot blocker, especially in transition, but just lacks size. He's going to take more of a playmaking role for this team. He is the true starting point guard in this lineup that can knock down shots off the dribble. But talk about Brandon Ingram. He comes in this year and says, look, man, when I go home, all I do is just watch 97-98 Jordan. It might have 96-97. That's all I do. I just watch basketball. I can't imagine anyone working harder than me. Brandon Ingram last year led this team to the playoffs without Zion. He was a guy that in the playoffs was the best player in a playoff series. Looked phenomenal. Was making three-point shots. Was unstoppable in isolation, where he struggled a little bit last year. And most of all, was a leader for this team. Now you add in Zion. And better yet, defensively, you have Herbert Jones going his second season. And in the draft, this team goes out at the 8th overall pick and selects Dyson Daniels out of the G League. Brandon, I'm telling you, he can be an all-defensive player. He's like 6'6", has a nonstop motor, a competitive fire that is so rare. And the biggest question with him was shooting. Well, he has the best shooting coach in the NBA to work with. A guy that has fixed Lonzo Ball's jump shot, who, believe it or not, Dyson Daniels was being compared to. The nuanced thing is, while Lonzo was injury prone, this team didn't want to bring him back. Dyson Daniels is younger, and he brings some energy off this team's bench, along with Grand Theft Alvarado in the backcourt as well. Defensively, they have a lot of pieces here to be excited about.
So a question is, so Zion's playing the 4. Is Ingram playing the 2 or is he playing the 3?
I would say Herbert Jones and Zion are the forwards. So Zion, you're asking?
Well, no, so Herbert Jones is going to play the 3 then?
Yeah, he showed some shooting, but it was like 2 attempts a game. So he has a lot of work to do.
Okay. Well, I think mostly they're going to be putting him in there in like that kind of Tony Allen role where he's like, his main goal and main mindset is I'm going to defend the best player on the team, the opposing team.
And he gets out very well in transition. This team, Zion's not going to get a lot of defensive rebounds, and Jonas Valanciunas, he's not going to beat teams in the foot race.
Yeah.
But with Dyson, with CJ, and with what's his face, Herbert Jones, those guys can all start a fast break on their own.
So my number 2 team is the Dallas Mavericks. Like I said, the number 1 and 2 teams can easily be flipped. I think a Luka-led team is going to be great. One thing I think I don't know what it is, but my feeling is John says they've gotten better and this is the best team Luka's played with, but I don't know. The feeling I feel is they've gotten worse and they've gotten less talked about. If anybody else is feeling that, but that's just what I'm getting a sense of. Yeah, I think Luka needs help to, strive forward and to start making championship runs. But I think the honest, real question is, will Luka let his help? Because you brought up Porzingis and he was not healthy, and I agree with that. But even when he was, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was averaging like somewhere between 12 and 15 shots a game, if I'm not mistaken, when he was on the Mavericks.
15 last year, 19
15,
a game.
yeah. What was it before?
19 a game last year.
He averaged 19 shot attempts?
No, 15 attempts.
15 attempts. Yeah, see, that for me is just that I don't like that. I think Luka obviously should have 20 or more, but I think if Porzingis is going to be your second best player on the team, he should get like at least 17 to 18 shot attempts a game. And that was a big contention with Porzingis. I'm pretty sure he talked about it listen, Luka decides when somebody's getting the ball and when they're not. And he just really wasn't giving it up. I think that was another point of contention with Jalen Brunson too, is that when Luka's got the ball in his hand, it's really just stand around and wait for Luka to do something with it. And when Luka doesn't have the ball in his hand, where is he? He's probably usually in the corner just standing there not doing anything. That's a concern for me. So I don't know. Does Luka have to learn how to play better with, other all-star caliber and all NBA players? Maybe. We have to see. So, but yeah, I think they can easily be the number 1 team in this division. That's yeah.
The issue for Dallas isn't Luka's willingness to collaborate with another ball handler, because he showed last year with Spencer Dinwiddie he could do that more than fine. You talk about, I don't feel this Mavericks team, the vibe here. And the reason why is they're not very dynamic and they're very predictable. Luka is a top 5, top 8 player, but the theme with him is he makes all the decisions. And much like James Harden in Houston, there has always been a cap on a heliocentric offense. When you don't have multiple guys who can attack from different angles, it makes the job of opposing defenses easier. Now, I said this team didn't get better, but they are the best version of the Mavs at this current point with Luka, because when you have a talent of this caliber, you're shooing for 45 wins. That's how good Luka is. But Jason Kidd last year did a phenomenal job maximizing their personnel. Now, the question is, can this group stay healthy? Because they don't have much depth. I talked about Jaden Hardy coming in, but as a rookie, he's not going to be polished. And so for Luka, the onus is on him to play 70 games. If he plays less than 60, let's say, as an ankle injury, this team will be in the play-in tournament. The Western Conference is too good. The Suns, the Lakers, those are teams that have been to the finals, and they can both miss the playoffs this year. So for the Mavericks, they need to stay healthy. That's the biggest, X factor at this team that could cost them big time in the standings. And that's the best way they're going to position themselves to make it back to the conference final.